Stephen, you are the presenter now. All right, I see your screen.
All right, thanks, Tim, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending upon where you are at. As you can see, Alliance covers a lot of territory, and great to, I want to thank Tim for having me on and hosting this webinar. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. As Tim mentioned, we're going to be covering the estimating solution and some of the other seamlessly integrated solutions that you're going to see that will take up a lot of your workflow as you look at pre-construction and creating that estimating and then creating that cost for that project that you're looking at. A couple of things to mention before we jump in. And this makes the IT folk happy. This makes the systems guys that are governing over all of the servers and the workstations within your organization. We have moved to a full SQL platform. So what that means is we moved away from our pervasive. Matter of fact, no solution out there, no competitor out there against our estimating solution has gone from DOS to pervasive to the full SQL solution, and we continue to build out the product. But with that SQL in mind, that full SQL in mind, now we have that one instance that governs everything within that insulated wrapper of a SQL application or a SQL instance. So with that being said, easier to manage, easier to update, and stay on top of. Now, as we dive into this, when we look at our solution right here, I always like to start off a presentation giving you the flexibility, the flair of what the solution brings to the table. And I will mention out of the gate that the number one competitor for us out there is not the vertical solutions that you see. It is Excel. So referring to that, I will compare to that and some of the things that you may find as you go through and work with an Excel application, some of the errors that we will overcome within our solution. But jumping in, as you can see, we've got a Microsoft ribbon that most solutions are going to. You will see that in every solution we're going to be looking at today. All of the power, all the features are just right there on the toolbar for you ready to utilize. But we want to get you away from bebopping from one tab to the next. We don't want you to have to do that. So very simply, even if you want to have your help button right there, we can put that on the quick access toolbar and minimize that so you're taking advantage of the real estate that's on your screen. And I like to have that open during presentations, but when we have that, now you can take advantage of that. And each of those functionality where we're getting to the quick access toolbar is specific to every individual. Now, as we drop down into the estimate right here, now these are costs for this particular project that we're doing. And just to give you kind of some of the flexibility that we look at in here, what we can do is we can go ahead and move columns around, call columns what we want, really customize them to your need. And if we want to get background, we can highlight that as you'd expect, say, okay. And now we're drawing the attention right where we want. And I've built out a customized look and feel for myself. But as an organization, we may want to have my layouts, and we may want to have shared global layouts where you get into maybe the review mode, reviewed operation of that particular estimate, and you want to see it in a different manner. Well, in this case, I just want to see it in my layout and bring that up. Lots of columns for us to insert in here. Just going to scroll through those real quick. And some of them customized to you with work breakdown structures and different ways to sort those particular columns, but giving you a lot of detail that I really don't have on this particular estimate for my view. Now, as we dive down into this, first of all, there's one question I always like to ask companies is, do you want productivity to have an impact on your labor? Of course it does, but do you want to track that? Do you want to be able to see that in the estimate? Well, there's two answers to that. Yes, we do, but are we doing it today? No, or we are already doing it. There's no, we never want to do that. It's always the answer right there. So in this instance, for this particular project, what we want to do is we maybe want to go and change that by a percentage or a multiplier, divide, replace, so on and so forth. So giving you the flexibility to modify a whole column. And by the way, there's numerous columns we can do that in here on. Or if we dive down into specifics right here, and I will bring up Excel at this point when I do this, is we jump in and we say, okay, well, we're going to be able to be a little bit more productive or less productive on this, make a change. It's going to have an impact on the labor as you'd expect. What about labor cost per unit? Maybe $50 per square foot. Or we're going to go in and make a change to the labor price. Well, as you see, of course, every time that we're doing that, that's having an impact as you'd expect on labor. But back calculating through our labor productivity, the key is I'm not overwriting any information, not breaking any links, not ruining any formulas, because all of that is done, that logic is built into the background. Well, in this instance, I want to go back to the original, so I'll just undo all of those particular things that we've done and go from there. Last but not least, if you've been estimating for years, I've been at Sage for about almost 20 now, so you know, I go back to the DOS days, believe it or not. So when we look at this, we can go in and put in a lump sum because I've got a great idea of what that activity is going to be, what it's going to cost, but I want to highlight the fact that I didn't take advantage of the logic within the system. So next steps. Well, maybe labor hour is not the way you want to do it. Maybe it's crew hour. Maybe we want to develop crews with labor and equipment rate tables that sit behind the scenes. What we can do is, of course, we've got our resources that we can go ahead and make changes to this. So in this case, we've got carpenters, we've got maybe a ceramic tile, we've got drywall stud installer. We can look at this by either labor and equipment, or let's just have the equipment and add that to the list as well. Change these numbers as far as the quantities are concerned, and you're good to go. So if you like to do things more by a crew basis, crew hour, average crew pricing, we can do that within the system as well. And by the way, you're not locked into doing it this way or that way. We have the flexibility to report on both. So as we jump in, the other thing that you may be interested in looking at is comparing subcontractors on the spreadsheet. Now, by the way, self-perform, when we talk about self-perform, it doesn't mean that you are self-performing. It could, of course, you may do that, perform that task for that particular project, but if in this case, it may be a subcontractor that we've stored their pricing in the database, and we'll get into the database a little bit later. But what we want to do is based upon our benchmark that we have here, let's go ahead and say, well, we've got concrete, break it out by trade so we can see those particular subs. Add maybe one more to the list real quickly. And we'll say, okay, enter their unit cost, or go up here and enter a unit. Now let's put another unit in there, 10. That seems more reasonable right there. And we maybe enter a lump sum. And we'll denote that, we'll highlight that so that you know that that is something that we entered rather than a unit cost. You can right click on them and use them in the estimate, but always can come back to your self-perform if you want to use that as well. Do it as a comparative where you can actually keep the labor and the subcontract and then compare the two together as well. Very easy to do. Now as we drop down in here, and here's the thing, is when we look at upstream or downstream partners within the business. I could be a subcontractor working with a GC, and I could be a GC working with an architect. I could be any of those working directly with the customer. They want to see what this is going to cost broken out by maybe room, floor, building, system, bid item, whatever it may be. Well, we want to give you the capability to see that in that manner. So if I drop down in here, I can go right to location and say, oh, okay, area 1 and 2 looks great. Let's summarize that a little bit. Now it's area 1, 2 with overlying totals of what that's going to be. Very easy to make that happen. But we can make quick adjustments as well. Let's say that these particular items didn't belong in area 1, they belonged in area 2. So we want to give you the flexibility to move these items around very easily within what we call work breakdown structures or locations. In the end, it gives you the flexibility to really dissect that information rather than 16 or 49 divisional breakout into a way that the customer wants to see it. Now, the other thing is when we go into reporting, I want to give you the same flexibility. What good is a tool to have that kind of flexibility and not give you the opportunity to build it out in here the way you want to see it. So now in this case, I can drop down in, I can say location, and let's just say phase item, determine the detail at what you want to show that, and then preview it. Now we've got this detailed information. I will admit this is probably broken out by area 1, 2, and 3. It is probably too much detail, I would say. So in a customer situation, we may want to just break it down by phase. So now we've summed it up a little bit further, and depending upon what you do and how you work within the system, you may even go up to just area and show a lump sum there. So up to you on how you want to work with the system. 80 to 85% of what we want to do as far as reporting can be done within our system. We give a lot of flexibility, so it may do the job for you. If not, we do integrate with Crystal Reports. We work with Crystal Reports, and it could be, and they can, basically you can do anything with that solution. So any reporting outside of what we want to do in here, we can get that done, no problem. The other thing is we may want to look at this at Uniformat. That's a common structure out there. But as I flip through these, you'll notice one thing. The look and feel of each spreadsheet is different. It could be location. It could be different columns we want to see. Or it could have a little flair with some colors in the font right there. The key to that is giving you the opportunity to make it the way that you want it and see it the way that you want it. Now, as far as creating an estimate, how do we get it done? Well, a couple ways. Copy estimate. More than a couple ways, of course. So we can copy an estimate. Maybe you want to use a template for a specific type of project. Okay, we can definitely do that. Use it over and over and over again. Change the name, change the quantities. You're good to move forward. Easy to do. Another way is, well, we might have multiple estimates open at the same time. I just want to drag and drop elements from one into the next. As you can see, very fluid, very easy to do. Now, you may be asking, well, if this estimate is old, it's got some old pricing tied to it, right? Because that is a picture of our database at that time. So let's say that's 3 years ago, labor, material, equipment, all the pricing fluctuates all over the board. Well, for our new estimate today, we want to take advantage of the database in its current pricing structure. So pretty easy to do. All we have to do is say, go ahead and from the database, updated, boom, and we're done. Easy to do. Very quick and easy to do. By the way, if you're looking at utilizing the system for maybe changing the pricing, is we also can take advantage of cost indexing. So if you cover multiple states, you're regional, national, and you want to make a click of a button change to that estimate, use our indexing functionality to do that. And a good example of that, means. We work with means databases. They have 700 cities across the U.S. and Canada. So if you are a government contract worker where they require means, or sometimes require means anyway, that is a great way to work with the system. Now, as we start to populate this estimate, a couple things here. This is our database. This is your database. By the way, you can purchase different databases out there. We have over 3 different database developers creating databases for our system. So pretty cool stuff there. Now, when you look at this, this is a 16 divisional breakout, the old 95 master format. But you may want to look at it in different ways. I don't have it set up for the 2005, 2004 master format. Of course, it has some reserved areas, some blank spots within that. But maybe I want to look at it U format, or I want to look at it by description. Multiple ways that you can build this out, and yes, you can do the 16 versus the 49 and show it in both and report on it in both as well. Important to suggest that also. But as we dive out into this, let's collapse all these. When we look at this, this is the 16 division breakout, and I usually will jump into concrete here and give you an idea of what we're looking at. These are what we call phases. These are items. These are the foundation of your database. This is where we house all of the pricing, labor, material. You could put subcontract in here, so on and so forth. A lot of good stuff in here. We can put in waste factors, formulas. By the way, this formula will determine something, but also create a standardization for us as far as workflow is concerned. Last but not least, of course, we always have accounting. We have always got the back office where we need to see and get in and do our analytics as far as are we making money or losing money? And hopefully we are always making money. So we're going to give you the opportunity to very easily click a button and send that in and create the job cost structure, the budget, so to speak, so we do that comparison. So rather than manually doing that, let's just click a button, send it into our accounting system, Sage 100 or Sage 300, and make that very easy for you. Lots of other things we can do, but we won't touch on that in this demonstration. So when we look at it, double click on that. I can drag and drop it. But here's the standardization. Here's what a lot of our clients move to our solution for. One of the things anyway is a standardized workflow. And imagine if you bring in your junior estimator, and what we want to do is prompt them for the information of input we want right there. Formalized process really gives you the opportunity to reduce those errors that may be made. So enter that information, send it to the estimate. We've just costed out what that would be. We've got labor, material, so on and so forth. Well, let's take it a step further. We can go ahead and drag and drop as many of those on there. Here's an alert system for you. And by the way, you can change the color. You don't have to go with that vibrant green where you need your sunglasses on. Is when you look at this, you can say, okay, we've got cubic yards. Let's enter that in. And when we do enter in a quantity, that's when it's going to create those extensions for us. If we don't have a quantity we spec'd out for the project, well, it's going to let us know we need to fill that in before we leave money on the table, if you know what I mean. So when we go through, we have a search mechanism that can say, give me all the subcontract numbers in here very quick. We can go in and say stud 2x4. There's the studs. If you look at this, you can, of course, have those questions, what we call variables within the system, change: length, stud spacing, corners, so on and so forth. Very easy to do. But of course, that's not the quickest way to do takeoff within our system. Going back to the DOS days, as I mentioned, go back a ways there. We used to call them work packages. Now they're called, of course, assemblies. Assemblies give us the opportunity for multiple items to work together to create a takeoff. So in this, if you remember what I wrote in earlier right there, by the way, I added that on the fly last time, and I saved it as an assembly or as part of this assembly, that area right there. We won't worry about that, but I can go ahead and enter those particular items and generate multiple items. So those are the same variables that I was asking myself for that concrete takeoff earlier, but that was just one item. This is multiple. Well, in this case, we could put some more complexity into this and say, well, I want to ask more detailed questions. Now, these are called variables within the system, and it's going to be important because when we get to digital takeoff, you're going to see how impactful that can be on your workflow. So when we go in and say 3,000, as far as the area, what's the gravel, sand, depth of concrete, we'll say 6 inches, 4,000 PSI. Notice it gives you a range of those particular PSIs, the strengths of that concrete. Every one of these variables can do that for you. But here's the thing. Let's say we didn't get that morning cup of coffee, typed in 1,000. Let's at least alert you on the minimums or maximums if you go outside that range. Once again, a safety net for you. As I jump down in here, the other thing is let's put some logic into the system as well. Are we going to be doing a turn down? Are we going to be doing that thickened edge around this? If not, why answer those questions? So build logic into the system that meet your business need. Easy to do. And I'm going to add this, say plus. Maybe there was an item that we didn't have on the fly. I did that to this other assembly that I was showing you earlier. I could double click on that, add that to the assembly, and then what we can do is we can save that as an assembly for later on. So there's a hybrid of ways of working with the system. Of course, you can buy a database from our database developers. You can build your own database and on the fly create things as you go along too. And those are there's a few options in there for you. Database developers will work with you to build that out even further, specifically tailored to your needs. Now, the key to our system is we want to give you the capability to do a lot of things, a lot of functions within one window. Looking at this, we can delete, we can add, see item details, we can add an item. Heck, we can substitute an item or adjust the productivity based upon this particular takeoff. And let's say for whatever reason we're building out a parking structure. This is on the 5th floor. We're the pump. We're going to have to use a pump. It's going to take all sorts of different things. We're not going to be as productive. Let's make that adjustment. And let's drive all of that to the estimate. So rather than one, we've got multiples. Quick and easy. Make it fast for you. So let's take the efficiency up just a little bit further. The thing that we look at here is we have a takeoff mechanism within the solution called models. Don't confuse that with BIM, which is becoming a big thing in the industry, or at least we're having a lot of conversations. We do have some companies out there that are working with BIM, and we've got some things for you there as well. But looking at this gives us an opportunity for us to do a complete estimate based upon little information. So I open this up. I drive down into this slab on grade. We've got this capability to do that. I'm going to do one thing real quickly here. I'm going to create a new estimate. And the reason why I'm doing that is I'll just call this the model project. And I'm using a different database right here. And the reason why I'm doing that is I'll show you in just a minute. And by the way, I've got lots of databases, so it's just dependent upon who I'm working with and what database that I want to show. So as we jump down into the models here, I'm going to do this tilt up right here. Now the key to a model is and the definition of a model is multiple items and multiple assemblies working together to create an estimate, rather than just one assembly at a time, one item at a time. Now let's do a whole slew of them. Put in pictures that help you out. Once again, I'm a junior estimator, so some pictures, some depictions of what I'm doing always seems to help out, right? Then here's our assumptions that we're going to be making. Now this is a true interview process. So if you look at this, we've got length, width of building, number of bays in the length. It's a warehouse, right? Tilt-up warehouse. As we look at this, you define these particular questions, this interview process, whatever makes sense for your business. I have companies that use models exclusively for all their takeoff. In this case, I've kind of pinpointed as negotiated and parametric type of estimate, but this could be a hard bid estimating tool, and I'll show you how you can do that. Now, I don't want to enter this stuff, so we can make this extensible. So in this case right here, I've created an Excel spreadsheet that I can drag information in. So I'll say, well, we got 20. And for the speed of this presentation, I'll just go ahead and drag that down. We'll go through the answering process right there. Say, okay, let's close out of that. Let's go grab that and drag that information in. That's on my desktop. And here's kind of an idea of how messy my desktop is. So I'll scroll through those as quick as possible. Now what you can see is we've got those zeros over here. I just want to drag this information in. Boom. Now I say, okay, close. And what you're going to find is here's another safety net, because if this was not green, there would mean there's something I've missed, something I needed to enter into this. But in this case right here, I'm going to generate it, and you just watch all those assemblies generating that estimate for us. Great. That's awesome. Now we've got an estimate right there. Of course, I want to go ahead and pick the layout that I like. Now we've seen that information right there, and we're good to go. We've got a complete estimate that we've just built in seconds. And I've got some stories out there with that, where we have a parking structure. One of our sales guys went in and was working with a company that at that time didn't own our system. And they said, oh, we've got this parking structure we did a takeoff for. It took us weeks and weeks to do. And that is sometimes the problem with the feasibility study or a conceptual or parametric estimate is we do all this work, and then in the end they don't even move forward with the project. But In this case right here with that example, he went in and did a presentation of one of our models that is pre-built and whipped it out based upon the information input from that contractor and created the estimate. And it took about, I'd say 5-10 minutes to go through the process. And we were within 1 to 2% of the number they ended up with. But anyway, so when we look at this, we've got a full estimate right here. Boom, good to go. Now we've got all the details, and we may want to look at the totals page, of course. Keep in mind in our solution, we have multiple total pages that you can have available to you. Well, you ask, why is that important? Well, for certain projects, you may have certain markups and add-ons that you want to apply to those. Now, I could go in here and say, we're not going to have any sales tax on this one. Let's just go ahead, delete it out of here. It's not deleted out of the saved totals page that we have there, but we may not need it. On the fly, we can do a lot of things. We can increase a percent. We can allocate this so it's buried those costs. So it's not going to be a line item for you. Some people may do that. Some people may not. And then we look at this and we say, well, as far as a negotiation is concerned, well, $797,000. Well, you're working with your customer, and they say, love working with you. You guys have done a great job working with us in the past. We want to go forward, but can you sharpen your pencil? May not happen to you, but it is something I've heard happen. So in this case, we'll go with this. And now we've got a variance, and we might want to spread that variance through the total. Just right click and I can spread it through the total. Or maybe I want to save this and spread it the way that I want. So I go up here and spread it right across this guy. So we'll say spread. And now we can take, let's say, $10,000 and spread it over that particular area right there. Say okay. Tells us where we were at before we did that spread and what the percentage adjustment is. Now we've got a running total down here as well. Go through the process of doing that. By the way, you can do that at a unit cost as well. So if you're driven by a square foot, whatever that may be for that project, go in and input what that really should be at, $1.25 a square foot, whatever, and it will create that adjustment as well. So pretty powerful stuff that we've got going on here within our estimating. This is just kind of scratching the surface. The last thing I will mention, and the reason why I'll bring this guy out is because we just added it, is how do we, in a more efficient manner, track alternates? Well, in this case, we have status as alternates. Well, I want to, right from the spreadsheet, get the capability to do a what-if scenario right here. Well, in this case, for this project, and I kept it very basic, is we're determining whether we want to go with carpet or tile. That's what we want to do. So in this case, we're working with the customer. We can say, okay, here's the impact on the total right there. Great. Now let's go ahead and generate the reports that we need, so on and so forth. But in this case here, we may want to see, and by the way, you'll see those down here on the estimate as well when I turn off and on that button. So they're either included over here or not. By the way, if you don't like that yellow, we can change it. If you don't like that strike through, you can change it. But we go in here and say approved. Now you can see the impact. And I made it pretty dramatic so that it would be a fairly dramatic impact on that particular total right there. Good stuff. So this is a brand new feature that we just added in, and it is a huge time saver. Now, let's take it to another extent, because really, when you look at the beginning of a project, well, you know, I've heard it's been said to me by several different contractors. It's kind of all over the board, but we could spend anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60% doing digital takeoff at the beginning. That's going to consume a lot of time. Well, now what we want to do is we want to give you a solution, or the opportunity to purchase a solution, right? So the opportunity to work with a solution that's going to give you a seamless integration with an audit trail that flows with that. This is Takeoff right here, part of the estimating suite. And when you look at this, a couple things to mention. It is a true database application. So behind the scenes, rather than random files being placed in some directory somewhere, you have a hard time managing. It is actually in a true database. Second, it reads PDFs in its native format. So when you look at this, now you're going to have those clean, crisp lines that you're going to be working with, rather than some solutions converting this to a TIFF, which fuzzies things up a little bit for you. So this gives you that capability to work with PDFs and load up pages very quickly. Matter of fact, this 120-page plan set is done in 10 seconds. Boom, done. The other thing is a multi-user environment. So if you want to track individuals and what they've done within the solution, I'll get a little ahead of myself and just show this real quickly. I'll just go out and do a quick takeoff right there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And if I go into my filtering functionality within the system here, now what I can do is I can say, well, show me only the things that Darren has done. So there you go. It's up here. All that other stuff is gone. So multi-user functionality within the system, allowing as many individuals as you need into the system or these plan pages at one time. So as you look at this Microsoft ribbon, pretty cool beans with that, because it's giving you the opportunity to see all those functions right there. But once again, you may want to tailor this to your need and to each one of your estimators. So not only can I add those to my quick access toolbar, but I also can customize any one of those functions. So I'm hitting a key on the keyboard and it bringing up that particular mode of operation that we're in. Make it specific to you, customized to you, so that you can really get in, dig in, and be efficient with the solution. Now you get in, you say, okay, I'm going to minimize that. By the way, digital takeoff, recommend 3 monitors. And really, to tell you the truth, I've worked with people that have had a TV screen in front of them. So that's maybe overkill, but I think it's great. You know, you've got a full TV screen. It's really easy for you to have a lot of space for everything. But two side monitors to work with as well. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up because I like to have the toolbar available for me when I'm doing presentations. Now, the other thing is these sidebars are control panels. Well, we can move these. Again, it's about real estate on that main screen, right? So I can move this over into one of the other panel or one of my other screens, dock them wherever I want, and they can be sitting there. A lot of functionality. I'm going to show some of this as we go through, but this one right here is our traces. It's a library that moves from project to project to project, so I don't have to recreate a takeoff every time, and I'll show you what that means. But let's go ahead and dock this guy. Boom. And we're good to go. So let's start with some basics and kind of grow from there. When we do this, quantity list is something to look at, work breakdown structures, and favorites. We'll take a look at all of them. I'm going to drill in. I'm just using my mouse. I can spin this around, make you dizzy. And we're going to do a takeoff. And I'm just going to go through the process. I'm not going to be Mr. Perfect on this. There's the first takeoff that I've done. Of course, it's an area. Well, I want to be more efficient. I just want to double click a line here, or single click actually, or even take it a little bit further and copy these particular guys that we've done, move them over here. So there's lots of ways within the system to be really efficient and effective with takeoff. Now, in this case right here, I may want to take it a little bit further, drag and drop it down into my project favorites and move it out here. So now I've taken off those areas. Like I said, I wasn't trying to be Mr. Perfect there, but when we do that takeoff, it's very quick, very easy to do. Now, to take that just a little bit further, let's first of all, let's go ahead and delete these guys. Go to the second floor. Now, you may run into a situation where you have a multiple floor takeoff. It's the same floor every time. Well, some solutions will say, oh, we can copy that, and then we can take it to the next floor and paste it. Well, within this solution, what you're going to do is this, or at least have the opportunity to do this, is I go in, I call this floor plan takeoff. I'll just keep it floor plan. Don't want to bore you with my 30 word per minute typing. Then I'm going to drag this off. So when I get to another plan that has that exact same floor plan, I don't have to bebop back to the second floor and copy that. I'm going to have it sitting over here waiting for me to just go ahead and drop out here like that. Now it's done a complete takeoff of this floor for me, ready to go. Okay? By the way, I will make one mention here as well. Let's say that this floor, this takeoff, was a different scale. It would automatically adjust the takeoff to the applicable scale of this page from what I started with to the applicable scale for this page right here. So pretty powerful stuff that we're working with. Now, go back to this plan right here, and I'm going to go ahead and do some takeoff again, but show you how easy it is to build out our library of traces. By the way, if I need to zoom in, anytime I need to do it, boom, I can be more specific right there and drop her in there and good to go. Now in this case, let's call this sealant and change the look and feel of what it's going to be. Change the color if you want. Let's go with that. Well, let's keep lime green as one of those things. And let's step it up a notch, see it, and say okay. Now we've got sealant ready to drop in one of our directories, but we want to go further than that because this pool is not going to be involved in the takeoff. We'll go around the corner, and all I'm doing is hitting a hot key, a shortcut key that we're using right there to curve right to that. And now that I'm done with that, I've gone through the process of taking that off. And just so you know, every time that we do a takeoff, we get a point, length, and perimeter and area. This is the group. As you can see, it's negated that group area out of that. So default within the system, we get 4 quantities. Well, in this case right here, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and take this one off because it is part of one of the divisions that we take off. So it's going to be concrete. We'll say okay. Now we've got that taken off. Now let's take it a little step further. So area is area, length, length, so on and so forth. Well, but of course, when you get into your takeoff, we got to spec out things. We got to put in depth of concrete, maybe depth of gravel, all of those good things. Well, in this case, let's change up a little bit and do a wall. In this case right here, I'm going to go through the process of doing a takeoff, and I'm not going to be Mr. Perfect, like I said, but I do want to show you one thing, actually a couple things here. If you go over to where I said, hey, point, length, perimeter, and area, you'll notice there's some additional specifications that we can put in there and answer those questions. We'll get more to that in a minute. You'll notice an E right here, which is a safety net for you that says, hey, Darren, you've got some specifications that you need to fill out. Well, I can go ahead and look at that. And by the way, this exists for us in the measurement list as well. We have a reporting functionality within this system that says, hey, give me all of that information. By the way, I'm going to add one more thing to it. All of this detail can be added to this, and you can sort it, descending, ascending, subsort it. It's very powerful as far as the system's concerned. But I'm in my review mode, and I see this red E, which means, again, I have not entered the information. And now what I'm going to have to do is go talk to Darren here, who created that, and say, well, why wasn't this done? But to save Darren some time, or at least us some time, let's go complete that information. By the way, panel 2 may be somewhere else. So we're going to give you the capability to have a pop-up window that says, oh, let's enter the height, 2 sides, and let's go ahead and enter the size of that sheetrock. Now, here's the thing, and I'm not going to demonstrate this, but I will talk about it. If you ever have a situation where the specifications have been impacted on a project where it changes for every one of these takeoffs, well, with one entry, we can change all of those takeoffs. Let's say the wall was only 10 foot high, or should I say only 8 foot high. I can do that with one entry, and it will impact all of the takeoffs that I've done. We can be very selective of that as well, where we go in and say, hey, let's change that spec for floor 2. We can do that also. Now I can say, okay, there goes my red E. Let's go and close this window out. Now the other thing that we want to do is drag and drop this in here use it as a takeoff mechanism, and guess what? I don't have to answer those questions anymore. They're already done for me. Done. Maybe this wall was a pony wall. We'll just go ahead and shorten it right there. Lots of things that we can do within the system that we won't hit on during this presentation. But now we've got all of these. Oh, by the way, this has been approved. Let's put it there so we can stamp, put clouds, any type of denotation that you want to put on here, and of course print it. You can print that, send that out to your field crew, and let them work with the system. So this is all leading up to the next step and where we want to go, what we want to give you the opportunity to work with, which is right here. So I've taken off these floors here. These are concrete pads, but for whatever you do, whatever square foot you take off, this could be whatever that may be. It could be flooring, subflooring, on and on and on. But we're going to give you the capability to send this over into our estimating system and do our takeoff right from here. So let's move these over a little bit and talk a little bit about specifications first. Well, highlighted this guy. You'll notice depth of gravel, sand, depth of concrete, so on and so forth. Looks pretty familiar. It's the same assembly that I had in estimating. So now what we can do is we can pop up, and now we can see our database here and drive into that particular assembly right here. So again, just to make the connection even further, here are those variables from our estimating solution. Down here are the quantities that we're taking off, and our WBS codes, maybe as an alternate or estimator or floor building. We want to go ahead and give you the capability to enter that over here and generate that to the estimate. Our estimating tool is just the database now and an analytical reporting tool that you can utilize in your process if you want. So a little bit further, let's drag and drop this guy on here. Now you'll notice all of that information has been completed. And if you go over here from the specifications that we have from our takeoff. And by the way, so we've got section 2. We've mapped that with these down here. There's Elvis Presley, building 2. So one more thing that we'll do before we do all of this fun stuff is we'll go in here, we'll use a work breakdown structure right there. And we will tab and escape. So just so we have that filled in so we can see that when we drive it over into the estimating software. Okay, let's go ahead and get some stuff done. Let's get this estimating started. Well, just go ahead and hit the plus button, done, send it over to the estimating, we're good to go. Now, you get thousands of calls a day, right? I mean, well, not literally thousands, but we get lots of calls. We got lots of project meetings that we've got to get to. We want to give you the capability to know where you've been. So this is what's been sent to the estimate. And we also want to give you the opportunity to hide anything that's been sent to the estimate as well. So if you look at that right there, that's been sent to the estimate. We're good to go. No way we're going to make a mistake on duplicating that. So again, a safety net for you. But let's take it a step further. For whatever reason, this particular slab right here, this flooring, whatever you would use it as, is going to change. Now notice this icon right here. When I go over here, it may become this. You never know what a customer is going to want. By the way, we have an overlay capability to lay over an addendum over an existing plan, tell you the differences between the two. We won't worry about going through that process. It tells me the difference. There is a highlight right there that says this has changed. Now we go to the takeoff, and here's our original. Here's the change of both the perimeter and the area. And by the way, we want to go ahead and make a note, me being that junior estimator. And we'll go ahead and delete that guy, and then make a note just so during the review process I know. Say okay. Update the estimate based upon a change that happened within the system, and we're done. Now it's over in the estimating. Well, if we look at making you even more efficient, now you can have multiple individuals in here doing takeoff. at the end of the day, you could say, well, let's go ahead and automatically find all those and send them to the estimate. Notice section 1, section 2, so on and so forth. We can send these to the estimate, create the estimate, generate it, and then let's take a look at the estimate. There it is. We can combine all those items, tighten it up, and we're good to go. Now we've got the location breakout. Remember section 1, section 2? That all flows over with it. If we want to go into the assembly, we can see all of the estimators that did this stuff. Looks like Elvis did most of it. And changed in demo. So, of course, I named it that. Let's right-click, review assembly, and see the details of what we did there and why it changed. So you get in your review mode and you say, oh, okay, we've got that information. That's great. Awesome. Now we can see all of those things that happened. But maybe that's not enough for us, right? Maybe we need to go back to the plans to see that live. Well, all we have to do is right click, because this indicator, this blue indicator, says it came from outside the system. Came from either a digital takeoff or a 3D takeoff. We're right back where we started from. So we can, in a review mode, go right back to where that originated from. So lots of other things we can do within the system. I'm going to be a little bit brief. And when we look in here, multiple scales per page. So if you want to have a situation where you get the detail page and you have multiple scales on that, we can go ahead and accommodate that very easily. Compare to drawing, just overlay over the top and it will compare the two. Bridge will tell you that if those quantities change, it will tell you that. Click of a button, update the estimate. And then a search mechanism that will search multiple pages at one time. Pretty powerful stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into one more thing because I'm kind of running short on time here. So let's do this. Here's the thing is when we look at where we wanted to go with this, we want the best of breed. We want the dream team of solutions. Estimating, of course, being the number one vertically used estimating solution out there. Well, when you think of CAD, what do you think of? What is the company that comes to mind when you think of CAD solutions? Well, it's going to be Autodesk, I would imagine. Well, of course, we wanted to partner with them to build an integration into their manage and simulate, an estimator's tool to get in and do the analytics of that model that they want to do. So in this case right here, I've got this model right here. Let's bring it a little more into view and let's tilt them just a tad. So now we've got it right there. So the model, I won't get into the breakout of all of these different panels that we're going to look at here, but what I will do is do a very quick demonstration of this. You'll notice in here we have an Takeoff tab. I want to start up the bridge. And in the process, we can start up the bridge and then also create, let's create that. You'll notice something here. We're going to name this, and I'll call it Navisworks. Multiple different savings and mappings for multiple different architects. Not every architect, there is no standardization out there, right? So even within the same company, worked with the design build companies and the VDC group, they all do things differently. But we can go ahead and adhere to multiple different ways of breaking out those objects. So if this was architect A, we could do that. The other thing is we can look at the estimate and say Navisworks, and pick the database. Of course, I've demonstrated a lot of different databases, so I have multiples in there. Say OK. And then what kind of project we're looking at. Well, say OK to that as well. Now, here's the key that you look at with the system. One tool that you can learn that allows you to position it to integrate to our estimating solution, the bridge. So there's not a huge learning curve here. Database right there for you as well. So our database is the foundation for all of the takeoff that we do. Now, in this situation, there's things that I usually go through in this presentation, but we won't get into that. What I will show you is that we can take advantage of the automation that takes place here and go out and say, here's all of the walls that make up this guy right back here. I'm on one screen. Typically, if I was doing this in a production environment, I would move this over to another monitor. But in this case, it's kind of scrunched. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and send those over to the estimate. So 69 walls we're going to take off in literally seconds. So if you're a design build organization, you want to bring in and start doing some feasibility, those types of things, you're using Navisworks. This is a great solution, good fit for you with our estimating and this integration piece. Now we've taken those off. Really, anybody that is using the Navisworks solution, manage or simulate, we work with both, just so you know. Here's all those walls. Well, what happens, of course, in the process of a project? It's going to get multiple iterations, multiple revisions as we go through. We'll talk a little bit about that. But at this point, now what we can do is go to this project and say, hide everything that we've taken over to the estimate, so those walls have disappeared. Very easy to do. But if you take off every one of the elements within this project, then that's going to be disappeared or gone when you're done. But we'll go a little bit further and we'll say, I want to compare what we've done here with the new rendering of what's just come in the door. So in this case right here, we've got the new rendering. There it is. A couple things we'll talk about. Let's move it down, zoom in, at least position a little bit better, right? If I go over here to my tree where all of the objects are with the attributes that they have, it's right here. Now, one thing that we have is that height assigned. This grays out. Those walls are still gone, right? We took those off already. But down here, there's additional walls that have popped up, either new, well, they're new. Now, there's some things that have happened to these walls in here as well. So we go back here and we say, okay, let's refresh this. Now it's comparing this revision to the old one that we've already taken off. Here's the changes. Here's the things that have changed, and we can go ahead and update the estimate from here. Now, I've gone through this process, but we can change the name, go on and so forth. At this point with the solution, we'd go through these one by one, review each. Next iteration, we're going to click a button and say, we're confident that these are correct. Right click, send them all, update the estimate. So increasing your power even more significantly, but giving you the capability to do 2D and 3D takeoff. So those are the areas that I wanted to cover. And believe it or not, I have 3 minutes to spare in our presentation. So we probably have some questions. So Tim, if you're still out there.
Yep, I am here. Everybody, if you do have questions, go ahead and ask those in the questions box.